killed Archie. The murderer is revealed as Eastenders goes live to mark its 25th anniversary tonight at 8 on BBC One. Daniel tries to stop Zara going through with her plan for revenge in Doctors after the BBC News at 1 next.
18 celebrity acts dared to dream. They were the ones brave enough to wear the improbable and to dance the unbelievable.
Go to face of us when you've got it, sunshine!
I will not blow this! The winner of Let's Dance for Comic Relief 2009 is... Robert Webb!
Relive the feeling as a troupe of new celebrities pull on their leg warmers and say, Let's Dance for Sport Relief, tomorrow at 6:30 on BBC One.
You are looking to effect a change to the whole political culture. They are not going to take that lying down.
They don't think freedom of information applies to them.
It actually applies to us as well.
I have a duty of care here. You can't release these figures now.
This is the House of Commons.
On Expenses, new drama, Tuesday at 9 on BBC 4.
This is BBC One in the South. Now the BBC News with Kate Silverton and Roger Finn at 1 o'clock.
Who's best to get Britain back into the black? 60 leading economists support Labour, saying it's right to delay spending cuts. The Conservatives say that, though, would undermine the recovery. Gordon Brown accuses them of scare tactics.
And I say to the British people, this is not the time to put the recovery at risk. This is the time to make sure that growth and jobs are secured.
A 9-year-old boy stabbed to death in West Yorkshire. His 18-year-old sister was also stabbed, but is recovering in hospital. A man's been arrested. Calls for strike action after the last steelworks in the northeast is mothballed, with the loss of 1,600 jobs. Will it be enough to get Tiger out of the woods? The golfer prepares for his first public appearance since his admission of a string of affairs. And a quarter of a century of these. For those, we look back at Albert Square's best bits as Eastenders prepares to celebrate its 25th birthday.
In the south, the 5-year-old girl who's been labelled overweight by school health checks. Her mother is outraged and we'll hear from her. And the owners of Wakehurst Place Gardens are advised to pull out as it's losing so much money.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the BBC News at 1. What's the best way to get the UK's public finances from the red back into the black? Well, everyone agrees cuts will have to be made in public spending, but how deep should they be and when should they start? Well, today 60 leading economists have come out in support of Labour's plan to delay cuts until 2011. Last weekend, 20 others, though, backed the Conservatives' call for cuts to come a lot sooner. They want them imposed this year. Here's our chief economics correspondent for more. Cue him.
After years of spending and borrowing increases, whoever's running the government after the election will have to make a big decision: how quickly to stop the flow and bring down the deficit. Gordon Brown has always argued that radical cuts must wait till an economic recovery has taken hold. He warmed to his theme this morning.
This is not the time to put the recovery at risk. This is the time to make sure that growth and jobs are secured. 2010 must be the year of growth. It must not be the year when the economy dips back into recession.
The Prime Minister was boosted by letters to the Financial Times, backed by more than 60 leading economists. They say the Treasury's plans for the next 12 months, with no big squeeze, are sensible.
Unemployment is high because people are not spending enough money to provide full employment. And in that situation, the government has got to keep spending in order to stop unemployment from rising. And we shouldn't see government cuts until we've seen the recovery well underway and unemployment on its way down.
That came as a riposte to a letter in the Sunday Times, signed by 20 other economists arguing for more radical action to bring down the deficit.
I think that the economists who have attacked it have done so on the basis that they actually don't think that there's real scope for the private sector to recover. I think that's wrong. I think low interest rates and easier credit will help the private sector to recover, whereas if the government is borrowing all the money that is available, then that actually will get in the way of a real and sustained recovery.
The Sunday Times letter was seen as supportive of Shadow Chancellor George Osborne's call for a more ambitious deficit reduction plan. Today, the Conservatives argued that business leaders, as well as the 20 economists, also backed their position. Whoever walks through the door of number 11 Downing Street after the election has some critical decisions to make, and in doing so will draw support from some economists. Those decisions on how quickly to bring down borrowing will affect the livelihoods of millions of people across the economy. Hugh Pym, BBC News.
Well, Hugh joins us now. Hugh, what's your sort of continuing assessment of this? How significant is this, really?
Well, Kate, it's a very, very significant debate in the run-up to the election and beyond. These two issues: how do you sustain the economy and help it come through a recovery, and how do you deal with this huge government deficit, one of the biggest of any industrialised nation? And the parties can fight themselves to a standstill before polling day, but after it, whoever wins has got to make a series of decisions which could go right and help, or could actually get in the way and make things worse. I think it shows how difficult it's going to be for them, that the economics profession is divided over how best to deal with the situation. Not much consolation for voters there. It's worth remembering, though, that however many economists you've got on your side doesn't mean you're necessarily right. Back in 1981, Geoffrey Howe, the then Conservative Chancellor, wanted to go ahead with a tax-raising budget just as the economy was coming out of recession. And 364 economists wrote saying what a bad idea it was. 364 against the Chancellor. I think history shows that he was more right than wrong, and they, if you like, hadn't quite got it right at the time.
All right, Hugh, thank you for that. A 9-year-old boy has been stabbed to death following an attack at his family home in Bradford. His 18-year-old sister, who was also stabbed, is now recovering in hospital. The 20-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder. A North of England correspondent Chris Buckler reports.
In the street where the 9-year-old boy lived, detectives are investigating his death. He was stabbed several times here just before 8 o'clock last night. His 18-year-old sister was also injured in the attack. But it's the age of the boy who's died that's left this community so stunned.
Feels like you're not safe anymore. Not even kids anymore. Not even in their own house or in the gardens and anything.
It's shocking, really. Stuff like that shouldn't happen.
Everyone's just so shocked. It's just horrible. There's lots of little kids that play on the street and you just don't expect it to happen. And when you read about it, you don't expect it to happen on your street. It's horrible.
Forensic officers arrived here this morning to try to establish exactly what happened at the house last night. A wide police cordon has been put in place, but detectives have arrested a 20-year-old man. It's understood that he suffers from mental health problems. The 9-year-old went to school with many other children who live in the area, and the family are well known to neighbours.
Well, a nice kid. He never bothered nobody. Didn't bother us. Didn't bother them at school. They played their own ways and stuff like that.
The 9-year-old boy lived just metres from his sister. Police officers are at both homes today. A forensic tent in the backyard of one of them, a sign of the investigation into a young child's murder. However, with one man in custody, detectives have made clear that they currently have no other suspects. Chris Buckler, BBC News, Bradford.
Now, what's the best way to provide care for the elderly in England? It's likely to be a key question in the forthcoming general election. It's also being discussed today at a conference in central London, attended by the government, the Lib Dems and a number of charities. However, the Conservatives have refused to take part as they say it's a political ploy. They oppose the so-called death tax, one of the proposals under discussion. Ross Hawkins reports.
MPs have long agreed the way we care for the elderly in England has to change, but they can't agree what that change should be. Today, Labour and Liberal Democrat politicians met with charities to talk again about the problem. The Conservatives didn't join that discussion because they said this gathering was about politics, not about finding solutions.
Well, this conference is just a Labour Party political ploy, frankly. I mean, a week ago, the Labour government weren't interested in hearing from care charities and councils about what their ideas were. They were pursuing a compulsory death tax option.
Well, I don't accept that. Today is a serious attempt to take the party politics out of this
public need a calm and measured debate, not just from the political parties, but from listening to all of the care organisations and the charities and councils who are key voices in this debate.
Until recently, those politicians were trying to reach a consensus in private talks, but they failed, and this has become a general election issue.
After the events of the last week, we've got to demonstrate, first of all, that we're prepared to work together, but also we should use this opportunity when there's heightened interest in the issue to engage the public, to initiate a national debate about what the fairest system would be.
So what system do the parties think is most fair? The government has set out three options: a partnership where it pays some of the cost of care, a voluntary insurance scheme, or an insurance system with guaranteed free care but a compulsory payment of as much as £20,000. The Conservatives have dubbed that a death tax and suggested instead a voluntary one-off payment of £8,000 to guarantee free permanent residential care. The Liberal Democrats want what they call a partnership model, with individuals and government sharing the bill. Over 10 years ago, the government set up a royal commission to look into these problems. It's recently completed a consultation and today holds another meeting here. But for some of those who already pay for the care they receive, all these political discussions aren't proving reassuring.
I think you've got to be allowed to have a little bit of savings left. I mean, you must cover your funeral, for one thing. But at the way it's going at the moment, none of us will have anything.
Politicians know some voters are waiting impatiently for them to provide a solution to this problem. Ross Hawkins, BBC News, Westminster.
Thousands of steelworkers are to be balloted over strike action in protest at the mothballing of part of the Chorus plant in Redcar. At its peak, more than 100 blast furnaces lined the banks of the River Tees. Now the last one is being shut down because a buyer can't be found. 1,600 jobs are likely to be lost. Well, Fiona Trott is in Redcar for us. Fiona.
Well, we asked some of those 1,600 workers if they would go out on strike today. Rumours of a ballot. They said that yes, they would. They can't comprehend why it is being mothballed. They say we make a good product. Why hasn't anybody stepped in to buy it? What Chorus will tell you is that it's been losing money. It all started with the global recession, and that consortium of companies which promised to buy 80% of its steel pulled out. But generations of people have worked here, and some of their relatives came here to protest today. Passionate doesn't even describe it. That's why so many are at the gates. They're comparing it to the strikes of the 1980s. And like then, they're blaming the government today. And also Tata, Chorus's owner.
There's nothing else in the area. Once this goes, that's it, we're finished. Can't throw away 140, 150 years of, 10, 5, 6, 7 generations of people who worked here from man to boy and retired and died and lived and the whole thing. You can't throw that away without feeling a tinge of sadness and remorse and frustration, really.
And when you mothball part of the steel industry in Redcar, you mothball the town. It's already suffering from past job losses here. People now think it will get worse.
I reckon it's the only place where the town shop goes out of business. And the whole town, the shops are shut down. The council have opened up some of their own stores just to try and sell local paintings and things like that.
I was made redundant about 6 months ago, and I found it really hard at the moment to get a job. There's nothing out there at all, not for my skills.
And so for people with these skills, it's going to be even tougher. But the company says it's not over yet.
I think I have to say there is a prospect that somebody could come in and make a credible bid. We are mothballing this plant. The plant is in good condition. And the market is improving, so that there is that prospect, and that's one of the reasons, or the main reason, why we're mothballing the plant and not closing it.
But the workers feel it is the end. That's because this isn't just their bread and butter, it's their heritage too. The day that steel making stopped here is going down in history. Well, there is talk today of 3 potential bidders, but of course they'll be taking on a huge equity risk and would have to invest millions of pounds. The company says there just aren't any customers, and more importantly, to get that blast furnace up and running again once it's been mothballed will cost tens of millions of pounds.
Fiona, thank you. Fiona Trott there. The High Court has ruled that British Airways can go ahead with its plans to cut the number of cabin crews staffing some of its flights. The court refused to grant an injunction to the cruise union Unite. The company says it has to cut its costs to stay competitive. Tiger Woods is to make his first public appearance since his fall from grace 3 months ago following revelations that he cheated on his wife. He'll speak later today to a limited group of journalists, although he won't take questions as he tries to rebuild his public image and relaunch his career. In a moment, we'll go live to Florida, but first this report from Kevin Geary.
It started mysteriously with an unlikely car accident outside his house, yet quickly led to the most spectacular unravelling of a sporting icon's image. Soon it emerged that Tiger Woods' wife, Ellen, might not have been equipped with a golf club at the scene of the smash, merely to free him from the wreckage.
New tabloid allegations this morning.
The bigger car crash was in his private life. In the days that followed, news of his various infidelities filled the newsstands, almost too numerous to make a proper count. So the media hoped for the full 18 needed to justify quips about Tiger playing around. After expressing his regrets on his website, Woods withdrew to a clinic specialising in the treatment of sexual problems and hasn't been seen publicly since. Inevitably, for a personality seen as so wholesome and squeaky clean and to become the first billion-dollar sportsman, some advertisers and endorsers scrambled to distance themselves. His face disappeared from many, if not all, commercials, with a consequent financial impact. But what remains untarnished is Woods' reputation as one of the finest golfers ever to play the game. The winner of 14 major championships, including 4 Masters and 3 Open championships, he's second only in the all-time list to Jack Nicklaus. Almost certainly he plans to play in this year's Masters, and to prepare for a difficult return will probably step back onto a golf course soon, possibly competing at Pebble Beach. How he handles the predictable teasing and sometimes cutting catcalls will be the greatest test of his mettle and will tell us much about his future. Kevin Geary, BBC News.
Well, Matthew Price is at the US PGA Tour headquarters in Florida for us. The news conference is scheduled to go ahead in just a few hours, but it will be very tightly controlled, Matthew.
Incredibly, and what this is all about is Tiger Woods and his management team finally taking control of a story which has been out of their control for the last 3 months. It's not going to be a press conference. Tiger Woods' agent has already said he will be making a prepared statement in front of friends and associates and a very small number of hand-picked journalists. It's going to happen about half a mile from where I'm talking to you at the moment. The majority of journalists, like myself, are going to be inside this hotel behind, watching it on a live TV feed. So very tightly controlled indeed, and I think the point is that this is the first stage of Tiger Woods trying to make a PR relations comeback, if you like, ahead of that sports comeback that Kevin Geary was talking about.
However, Matthew, there has been some criticism about the timing of the conference from his fellow golfers.
Yeah, there's a match play championship going on the other side of the country at the moment in Arizona. Some of the professional golfers there have expressed their frustration, if not anger, that Tiger Woods is diverting the attention from them, and they say perhaps he could have chosen a better time to do this. There's a rather intriguing letter that the Associated Press says it has from the commissioner of the US PGA Tour, Tim Fincham, in which Tim Fincham says it had to take place today because Tiger Woods is on a break from his therapy. We don't know the truth of that, but that may explain why it's happening now. Simply put, Tiger Woods is, as I mentioned a moment ago, trying to make a bit of a comeback. He is a divisive figure now. There are many golfers and indeed fans who are disappointed with the stories that have come out about him, but at the same time the US PGA Tour and indeed the sport of golf knows that he is big business.
Matthew, thank you. Matthew Price there, and there will be live coverage of that press conference on the BBC News channel at 4 o'clock this afternoon. The time now, though, coming up to 18 minutes past 1, and our top story this lunchtime. 60 leading economists support Labour's plans to get the economy back on track. The Conservatives say that delaying spending cuts would undermine the recovery.
And coming up, I'm in Leicestershire, where after centuries of getting it wrong, historians have finally worked out the true location of one of Britain's decisive battles.
In South Today, we'll have the weekend weather forecast. Also, new plans to restore Horsham's Shelley Fountain, even though most of the town wants to get rid of it. And breaking down barriers, one of the first men with a disability to qualify as a cricket umpire.
It's almost a week since the start of Operation Mushtarak, the major offensive against the Taliban in southern Afghanistan. At a briefing at the Ministry of Defence this morning, officials said the operation was on course, despite an increase in Taliban resistance in recent days. Well, our World Affairs correspondent Mike Waldridge was at that briefing and joins me now. So who was there then, Mike, and what was the tenor of what was being said?
This was a briefing given jointly by the Ministry of Defence and the Foreign Office and the Department for International Development, all very much involved in what they call this mission at the moment in southern Afghanistan. The picture that was painted was of a military operation that is perhaps in many senses going according to plan. They acknowledged that the level of resistance by the Taliban, certainly in the last couple of days, had increased. There are incidents they accepted across the board at the moment against both British and US forces and the Afghan forces working alongside them. But they said that the level of this resistance was very much in line with what was expected. They insisted being dislocation of the Taliban forces, and these attacks were uncoordinated. A development today, some 200 elite Afghan policemen, the Afghan gendarmerie, are being brought into this area. There will also be an increasing effort made now to try to hold military installations or important road crossings and bridges and so on. All of this they hope to lead towards then the efforts to stabilize this area, which has of course been such a strong Taliban area of resistance over this past year or two.
Mike Waldridge, thank you. The Plaid Cymru leader Ieuan Wyn-Jones is expected to tell his party's spring conference in Cardiff that in the event of a hung parliament, a vote for Plaid would secure the best deal for Wales. The party has 3 MPs, but says its target at the next election is to make that 5. Mr Jones will argue that Plaid could play a key role if no party wins an overall majority. Well, the Green Party leader Caroline Lucas has predicted that her party will make a truly historic breakthrough in the general election. Speaking at the Green Spring Conference, she told delegates they will win their first seat in Parliament.
We are going to Westminster to make a difference, to open the doors for all of those that we represent, to hold the government and Parliament to account, to show that you can stick to your principles and get things done. That is why we are here. That is the responsibility we want to take up on May the 7th.
Now, it's 25 years since the nation first heard this. Yes, Eastenders, of course, has turned out to be one of the most successful soap operas ever, with millions tuning in, week out, to follow the torrid lives of Den and Angie, Dot Cotton, the Mitchell family and the like. Well, tonight the programme celebrates its Silver Jubilee with a live episode. Our reporter Lizo Mzimba has been following rehearsals and joins us now from Albert Square. Lizo.
Yes, welcome to a slightly sunny Albert Square. This is, of course, where it's all going to be happening in just a few hours' time. Viewers, of course, over the years have been well used to following what happens here, but tonight, for the very first time, we'll be able to watch events as they actually unfold, as they broadcast a 25th anniversary special to basically commemorate a show that since it began in 1985 has been nothing less than a national institution.
Oh, stinks in here, doesn't it? Ain't working.
From its opening moments, it became one of the most talked about shows on TV. The intention was to reflect the issues that real people faced in their lives, and its mix of gritty plots alongside more light-hearted storylines made it a hit with millions of viewers.
Oh, nice of you to drop in, Ethel.
Right, at present, we're on 3.96 recurring garments every 4 hours.
The only actor to have appeared continuously since episode 1 says it's that variety that's kept him in Albert Square.
If you're an actor in a soap, you get to portray a far wider variety of emotions and character traits and things like that. When you ever get to portraying a sort of like a smaller drama series. So I like it here because it's always something different. It's always something fresh.
The programme is nothing less than a national institution.
That has got to be the sickest joke that you've ever played, and then what's fell for it.
It gained one of the biggest TV audiences ever when Den Watts told his wife Angie that he was leaving her.
This, my sweet, is a letter from my solicitor telling you that your husband has filed a petition for divorce. Happy Christmas, Anne.
Stopping me what? From
One of the reasons for the show's enduring popularity has been its willingness to break barriers, by attacking major issues through its main characters. In 1988, there was the rape of Kathy Beale.
Please, James, let me go.
No. Well, why should you be ill?
For the character of Mark Fowler, it was living with HIV.
What they call HIV.
HIV?
Yeah, HIV.
All you've got to do. And more recently, the sexual abuse of teenager Whitney Dean by her stepfather was a major storyline.
Either you lie or I go back to prison. Is that what you want? You want me to go back to prison?
But of course, the things that have got most people talking over the years have been the whodunits. Who fathered Michelle's baby? Who shot Phil Mitchell? And in today's live episode, we'll be revealing the answer to the Christmas Day cliffhanger of who murdered Archie Mitchell. And they've been rehearsing for days.
And that's no surprise. A live type is a huge undertaking, especially as they know millions upon millions will be watching.
Well, they're in the middle of one of their final rehearsals just behind me here because it is a very complex event to get right. The other thing that's a huge challenge is keeping the identity of Archie's killer secret. Not even the actor or actress who plays the murderer knows it's them yet. They've rehearsed 10 different scenarios with 10 different performers, and only a few minutes before they go on air will they be told you're the murderer and you'll be unveiled on live TV.
Wow. OK, Lisa, thank you very much indeed. Nothing like being live, of course. Now, years and arguments and debate now, but among archaeologists, they've finally revealed the correct location of the Battle of Bosworth. They believe they may have also identified the exact place where Richard III was killed by Henry Tudor's forces in August 1485, a decisive moment in the Wars of the Roses. Our correspondent Ben Godfrey is in Leicestershire to explain more. Ben.
Well, the Battle of Bosworth was one of those most defining moments in British history. It heralded the start of the Tudor dynasty, but proved today that historians can get things wrong. It's taken them so long, but with advances and new techniques in unearthing some of the things behind us in this field, they say this is where the battle took place, but it's taken such a long time to get here. The Battle of Bosworth Field was the last time an English king, Richard III, was killed leading an army in the field. The year was 1485. His crown passed to Henry Tudor. For centuries, it was widely thought it happened here, at Ambion Hill near Market Bosworth in Leicestershire, but no more. 2 miles away, this is Crown Hill. Glenn Ford and his team have spent 4 years digging away. They're certain it happened here.
If you'd have been here on the 22nd of August in 1485, you'd want to keep your head down because there would be lead flying through the air.
These lead shots were discovered last year. They're the largest collection from any medieval battlefield in Europe, fired from shotguns that helped to end the War of the Roses. This silver-gilt brooch of a boar is the real clue. It was found 100 metres away in this field, and this would probably have been worn by a knight who rode with King Richard when he was killed. It's come as a real surprise to the Oliver family, the landowners who've had the farm for 3 generations.
Well, it's just out of the blue, and you can only live with the excitement of it, and you know, hope people enjoy what we've got now.
Experts have more work to do, not least how to tell tourists that the true battleground is a brisk 2-mile walk from the Bosworth Heritage Centre. Well, as the snow's now melted away, there's some concerns by experts that people with metal detectors will come down and try and plunder the site, but they tell me there are no treasures left here, only newfound knowledge about how they'll analyse and research medieval history in the future, and even how it's taught in schools.
And thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you. Now, a full weather forecast in just a moment. But these pictures in from Birmingham Airport show the wintry weather isn't relenting. The airport managed to reopen early this morning after being closed overnight. There have also been delays to rail services elsewhere in the Midlands and the Northwest. Still pretty chilly there. Let's get the latest update then from John Hammond, who joins us. More wintry scenes you've got in store then.
When are we going to shrug it off? I mean, it's just going on and on, isn't it? This was a picture, thanks for your pictures, by the way. This was taken by Jane in Worcestershire, a typical scene across the heart of England. Through yesterday, there was a good deal of snow around, as we've seen. As Kate says, there has been some fairly major disruption in some places too. Here was the feature, the thick cloud which brought that snowfall across many parts of Wales, central England. It's been moving away, and in its wake we see much brighter skies today, some welcome sunshine, but at night it turns very cold indeed. One or two lingering sleet or snow showers, but I think frost will be the main theme nationwide. Quite a hard frost, and as in recent nights in the glens of the Highlands, well, minus 15, minus 16 is quite feasible. For most of us, we're looking at around about -1 to -4 degrees, one or two fog patches as well. So a cold start to the weekend, a bright and sunny one for most of us, but not all. There is some uncertainty about developments to the southwest. It looks like we're going to see an area of wintry showers. What do I mean? Well, rain, sleet and snow moving across other southern counties as we go through the day. And again, that could give a covering in some places, one to watch. Elsewhere, further north, a few wintry showers, but plenty of sunshine. And again, it's going to be cold at 3 or 4 degrees across the UK. So we could see some snow across the southeast for a time through tomorrow evening. That should ease away. And again, it's another frosty night tomorrow night into Sunday morning. And then more fun and games. Another area of snow potentially developing from the southwest, pushing into that cold air, little frontal feature. Now, it looks as if it's going to move further northwards, bringing that snow risk into northern England. And in its wake, maybe a little bit less cold, turning back to rain. But it's going to be one of those weekends, really, all to play for. A wintry mix. There'll be some rain, there'll be some snow, and hopefully you'll see some sunshine as well. Kate, how does that grab you?
Here's hoping. All right, John, thank you. At 1:30, a reminder of our top story then. Leading economists have backed Labour's plans to delay spending cuts in an effort to bring the economy back on track. However, the Conservatives say any delay will hamper recovery. Well, still to come on the BBC News channel in the next half hour, a roundup of all the business news and all the day's sport. And at 4 o'clock this afternoon, Tiger Woods speaks in public for the first time since his admission of a string of extramarital affairs. That's all, though, from the news at 1 this lunchtime. It's goodbye from me. On BBC One, we'll join the BBC's news teams where you will have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.